Hello, it's Mark Kelly from What I Know Now, wishing you then. On today's show, our guest is Jim Carr. Jim is first and foremost a technologist who has experience working in several of Ireland's leading startups, holding positions as developer, PM, head of development, CTO, and most recently in CarTrawler, a solution architect. Jim started off his career in games development, moving to system integration, where most recently he's been involved in building enterprise-grade products and platforms. In today's show, we discuss Jim's journey to current technical position, why he chose to work in a startup instead of a multinational. Jim also speaks about creating a culture where you build something for now and you live in the moment. Leadership through doing, a path of growth for you and your people. Test control experiment, where you let the data tell us what the customer wants and work off that. We also speak about the future IT, microservices, AI and IoT. Jim's favourite interview questions, advice to graduates. We also speak about the biggest influences to Jim's working life. Now kick back, relax and enjoy the show. Today I'm delighted to have my guest on the show is Jim Carr. I've known Jim for nearly 7 years now. Jim is a technologist, he's a leader in the industry, he's a hands-on techie as himself, he's got strong leadership experience, he's previously had project management experience, he's also been head of product development, he's worked as a CTO, he's a GAA coach and he's a wine connoisseur, and when he gets a chance is a cyclist as well, from what I hear too. So I'm delighted to have you on the show, Jim. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks Mark, thanks for inviting me in, looking forward to it.
So today we're going to speak about Jim's background, his experience working in some startups, his experience with culture, Agile, his tips for the top, and also any learns he's had along the way. And later we'll talk about his 3 benefits from hindsight, what he knows now that he wished he knew back then. Jim, would you mind just giving me an overview about your experience to date and how you kind of got in your position that you're in now?
Yeah, sure. So I think you have to go way back. I got a computer when I was about 12, and I thought I wanted it for playing games, but it turned out that I enjoyed kind of writing games more. So I learned how to do the whole graphics and sound and programming. I learned the challenge of making things perform fast and learning assembly and stuff like that. And so I knew immediately in my heart that I wanted to be in computers. I wanted to be programming. I wanted to be solving problems. And so I went to college. I did DCU, computer applications. I got myself a job in consulting with a company, Vision Consulting in Ireland. I got to see the world a little bit. I got to work in great project teams on short projects, loads of experience in manufacturing and finance and stuff like that. And I met some great people along the way. And I was lucky enough when I came back to Ireland that I got to work in some great startups. I met people like Brian Caulfield, who had Peregrine. I met Kelly Murphy and worked with him in Marrakesh. I met Mark Roden and worked with him in Ding. And I saw what it was like to be in great startups, and I got to bring some of that experience back that I gathered along the way. So I think that brings us right up to date pretty much. And now I'm working with CarTrawler with Bobby Healy, who's a pretty irreverent CTO and has some very unique ideas about how he does things.
What made you go into startups or upstarts when you could have maybe gone into more the safety net of your larger corporations, your multinationals?
I think it's the pure fun of it. It's the enjoyment of the startup. The startup has it's something maybe like the kind of the land rush of Oklahoma. These kind of great open plains of opportunity where anything is possible, and startups will stretch you. They'll give you all kinds of opportunity. They'll challenge you. You'll learn an awful lot about yourself, about what you can do, about what's possible, and you'll have the opportunity to shape a company, and that's a fantastic thing. And to be, to choose what type of people you want to work with, what kind of culture you want the company to have. And all of that. I think so. Startups just offer you a kind of canvas that you can paint on that you just don't get in the more conventional environments.
Yeah, if you were to go back again, would you maybe start up your own startup from scratch? Maybe.
So that's a really good question. I wouldn't kind of put off the idea forever about doing that either. At some stage. But I have to say, what I've learned about myself in however many years of industry is that I'm not necessarily the entrepreneur. I'm definitely the kind of the innovator, and possibly the crackpot engineer, crackpot inventor. But I've worked with great entrepreneurs, and they are a force to be reckoned with. I mentioned Brian and Kelly and Mark and Bobby, and they are the Da Vinci's, the Columbuses, the Shackletons of the modern era. Where they want to get somewhere, they're going to get there, and they'll take you over high seas, and they'll drag you with them, and they have this energy and this desire, and nothing's going to stop them. And so I really like working with those kind of entrepreneurs that will bring you along. But I don't necessarily know yet if I'm one of, if I have that side to my character.
With those type of people, and you mentioned they're so passionate and focused and they want to get to where they get to, did they surround themselves with people that complemented their skills?
No. Not necessarily. They surrounded themselves with people. Yeah, well, I suppose yes. They obviously found people who fitted in with the kind of ideas and the culture and the spirit of what they wanted to achieve. But they also found, I use the word irreverent when I describe Bobby. They find people who have skills that are unique. That adds something different to the startup. I mean, I've seen people who are just incredibly creative working in startups, but I've also seen people come from, big pharma and the likes of Pfizer, who've just taken everything that we know about software development and turned it on its head, turned it into, why don't we make the customer treat this new thing that we're building like a clinical test. We're going to give them a placebo, and we're going to give them a new feature, and we're going to let the data tell us whether one is better than the other. So it's not necessarily about the conventional wisdom and the conventional skills.
So just checking that you got all the traffic, but actually let's take a step back. Why aren't these people purchasing, or why are they actually making the decision to look at the testing for the real results?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the data science model or the clinical trial model actually says, we'll let our customers data tell us, what's working and what's not.
Because I can see a real trend in the industry at the moment where they're saying you can do all to get the traffic, but unless you've got a specific conversion strategy and you've got something that's analysing your touch points, then you're not necessarily going to get the wins that you want to get. And so many websites have got the traffic, but they don't necessarily have the consumerism within them.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that we've learned maybe in the last 5 years, is that it's not just about developing great features and pushing out minimal viable product and constantly reviewing that. It's about having a strategy, a kind of data strategy as well.
Brilliant. Who has been the biggest impactor on your career?
Wow, that's a really good question. I would guess probably Brian Caulfield or somebody like that. So Brian was my first experience of working with a real entrepreneur, founder of his own business. And Brian had a vision. And I was lucky. I arrived back from working away around the world, and it was the right time for me to meet somebody like Brian. And so what I learned from working with him was you create a culture of a company that can achieve great things, and you don't plan to achieve great things in the future. You achieve great things every day. And the people who are working in that company, the people who buy into the ideas of the startup or the culture of the startup, they buy into the now. We're going to enjoy every day. We're going to make things happen every day, and we're not going to postpone enjoyment of this for some future possible event. We're going to enjoy the here and now. And subsequently, I think in Marrakesh, in Mobile Aware, in Lekela, which got acquired by OpSource, we tried to emulate that over and over. We tried to create a culture where we enjoyed every single day, and we weren't overthinking what does the future hold for us. We're going to get something, we're going to build something for now. The culture of a company is like it's like the personality of somebody that you like to spend time with. And for me, a good company culture is like that. It's about storytelling. It's about having fun. It's about, there's a degree of irreverence to it as well, and not taking yourself too seriously. But there's also there can be rough edges to it as well. Like somebody that you really enjoy spending time with, maybe you have to earn their respect along the way as well. And so there's that element to a company's culture as well. You want people who you can enjoy working with as well, but who you really respect as peers and as what they bring to the company too.
How important is the hiring process to maintain culture?
It is. It's super important, and I know you know this more than me, and it's probably taken me a while to figure this out, longer probably than I'd like to admit. But the time that you invest in that whole process of hiring really pays you back so manyfold. I mean, they say you need to kiss a lot of frogs, but actually the time that you invest finding people who fit with the kind of values of the company, who bring something unique and maybe not just complementary, going back to earlier conversation, and who have the spirit of the startup, of the culture within them as well. That's really, really valuable. And you know when you meet somebody within 30 seconds whether they have that, and then you spend the next 59 minutes talking to them about what experience they have, but within 30 seconds.
You've always been passionate about Agile, back before Agile was in vogue. What's so special about it, and why were you always enthused about it?
So I think the big thing for me was the kind of minimum viable product. Build something small and build it fast, and get it out there and see what the market thinks of it, and they'll tell you whether to keep building more of that stuff or whether to stop and go off in a different direction. And I'd worked in the industry of waterfall, and you do a lot of planning, and you spend a whole lot of time building something that it turns out maybe doesn't fit the goal that well, or the market's moved on by the time you deliver it. And I think this light bulb of Agile and build only what you know right now. It's amazing as an industry that it's taken us so long to get to this. And I include myself in that industry as well. It's taken me a long time to figure this out as well. But now, you just simply would never go back. Yeah.
Would you offer any advice for someone that's just going to start their journey on Agile?
I'd say don't overthink it. That you can spend. The trouble with the mindset that you're typically coming from when you embark on Agile is you're used to spending a lot of time planning. Right. And you will typically plan a lot around adopting Agile. So I'd say, just don't overthink it, jump in, just do it. And of course, there's principles of Agile. You don't need to adopt everything, and it's not a one size fits all. It's a case of just jump in, roll with it, and tweak it as you go. And let the Agile model, adopt the tenets of it, adopt the basic concept of it, but then kind of flesh it out to meet your company. And beware of over-structurizing Agile as well.
So over-structure, too much planning, just kind of get on with it.
Yeah, just get on with it.
Okay, okay. One thing that always impressed me about yourself, Jim, is that you were able to wear so many different hats. So I remember your time back in OpSource, you were doing some production support at some crazy hours of the day. You had your PM hat on, you had your Agile Scrum Master hat on, you were still getting your hands dirty cutting code, where you've got a real passion for, and then you were hiring and kind of going through CVs, and in some cases putting the bins out, and And then I always remember you getting on the bike and you were out to collect the kids. I'm not sure if they would go on the back of the bike or they were on the back of the bike. So
right.
you were out to collect the kids. Then you had kind of, you were doing some coaching, kind of Gaelic coaching as well, supporting them too. And then you would have the conversation about finding the time to cycle. And I just couldn't get my head around some of the complicated emails that you'd have to go back to articulate on and managing all these different fires, because come 12 or 1 o'clock, America came on and it was like, right, sleeves up.
Yeah.
What have we got today? And I always found that amazing. And how did you, I don't know, find a balance?
Finding a balance is a challenging one. I mean, that was a huge amount of fun as well. It was kind of demanding. It was high energy. We were building something at the time. I remember that. I remember the kids being small and being on the backs of the bike, and I remember working with Americans and that kind of crazy time of the evening. But I think it was a huge amount of fun. We were building something new. We had this idea of building a cloud platform at a time when there wasn't really that much going on in the world of cloud. And so that in itself, the innovation of it was very exciting. And that kind of sucked you in. That was the kind of Shackleton endurance journey.
Yeah.
And that sucked you in. But I think the balance of it is actually really important in itself. So it wasn't all about work. It's never all about work. It's work pays the bills, work feeds my kids and my family, but also, and the complicated thing is work also sort of feeds my soul as well. I get an awful lot out of it, probably more, as much as, or if not more than I put into it.
One of the things that I'm getting more involved in is David Allen's GTD, Get Things Done. I'm not sure if you've heard a concept of it, and also read recently The One Thing by Gary Keller, which is pretty much turned my whole philosophy completely upside down and really been a game changer for me. Was there anything that you used particularly in terms of a kind of a mantra that you said, this works quite well, I'm going to work to it, or is it?
In terms of philosophy, I think Covey's 7 Habits was a game changer for me. Maybe 20 years ago, and
it's a big book.
It's a big book, but and the kind of sharpened sword thing was a big mantra for me. Like, make sure you keep on learning, and not only make sure you keep on learning, but make sure that you empower people to keep on learning as well.
Yeah.
If you want to have good people, and if you want to hold on to good people, you got to keep them. And this is where Agile breaks, actually, because you can think about delivering product as minimum viable product, but if you want to find and hold on to great people, you have to think about the longer term with them. You have to have them on a path of growth. So for me, I have to be on a path of growth, and I have to be learning stuff, and I have to be engaged. But I also know that if I want the people I work with, and not just the junior developers, but the senior operations manager, the head of network engineering, all of these guys, they also have to be on growth paths. They have to be learning something new. So for me, I think it was Covey and Sharpen the Sword. One
thing that you've been quite unique is you got into a very, very senior position in Easy Top, and you'd kind of strategic outlook and kind of really dictating the strategy of the business. But you chose for your next position to get more technical, more hands-on, less probably on the people management side, more influencing through leadership by doing, which I find super exciting and engaging to do. Was that a big decision for you to make?
That's a great question. In hindsight, it probably was, or it ought to have been, a huge decision, but it was a very natural decision for me. So I think what happened, and what happens for a lot of people, is their career carries them along. They kind of drift in at programmer, developer, product level, and then they get carried along to, I certainly got carried along to management and leadership and head of engineering and CTO. And eventually you arrive at a place and you're no longer delivering the product. You're no longer hands-on delivering the product. You're no longer doing the thing that you loved doing when you were age 12 and you always wanted to do when you grew up. And I found with the CTO role at EasyTop, I was building teams who were building the product, and I was engaging leaders who would go out and hire teams, and who would then build the product. I was just too far abstracted from the thing that I love doing. So for me, it probably ought to have been a huge decision, but it was kind of a decision in a moment. You know, I need to be back closer to the delivering of things, and maybe that's what I mean when I go back and say, you know, you have to have fun every day.
Yeah.
You have to get up out of bed and look forward to, for me anyway, look forward to the thing that you do every day and take enjoyment out of that, because who knows, you know, where it's all going. So it's about today.
The leading through the technology element is where you feel really comfortable, isn't it? Because it kind of forces you to stay current.
It does. It forces you to stay current, and current, you know, technology changes all the time, and the way we do things, you know, the methodologies and the philosophies change all the time as well, and I like that. I like that it constantly, you know, there's nowhere to hide. It constantly engages you, and you constantly have to keep on top of, you know, what's happening in the industry. And the technology leadership thing, I think the only way ultimately that for me that I can really lead is by example.
Biggest learnings of 2016?
2016, is it nearly over yet?
I don't know. Or so far, maybe the last few years.
It's that data science thing. It's the you know, it's the test control experiment, you know, this kind of clinical trial. So I'll never again go and just build something and push it out and, you know, see what the world thinks of it. I will always, you know, take something that's already out there and build something else and kind of parallel trial them and let the data tell me, you know, what customers think.
It's kind of tied into fail fast, kind of.
It ties into fail fast, but it also ties. I think it probably goes back, and again, you know, it's taken us a long time as an industry to kind of twig that this really works as a mechanism. But it goes back to Marissa Mayer at Google and now Yahoo, and saying, you know, let the data tell us what to build, what the customer wants, and that's really, really powerful. And that's what we do at CarTrawler. And you see, you mentioned as well, we see more and more companies starting to build stuff that way. So that, for me, 2016 is all about, you know, the clinical trial.
Where do you see the future of IT going?
In Ireland, worldwide.
In Ireland, maybe to starting point.
So I think IT. I think IT here is in pretty good shape. Like I think if you compare Ireland and the UK and Europe and the US, we've got some great colleges, you know, some great universities producing great candidates. We've got a good investment community. We've got government investment. I think we're in pretty good shape. I think the cost of education is obviously expensive in Ireland. We probably need to do something about that. But then you compare it to the UK and how much, you know, students take on in loans and how long they carry those for, and you think, right, we're not so bad actually. So no, I think as a community, and you only have to look at the kind of startup culture and the digital hubs and so forth to see, you know, there's real promise here still, and there's great companies coming out of it. So I think, you know, as an industry, the IT industry is doing pretty well. Where's it all going? Who knows? We're definitely seeing, you know, we've seen the move from software as a product to software as a service. Now we're seeing, you know, the whole software as a service thing moving into the cloud, and that's yesterday. What's the next generation of that? Who knows? But it's, whatever the case, it's going to be very exciting. I think we've embraced cloud. I think microservices are probably the next big thing in terms of technology. We're building things from smaller pieces. Have
you been keeping an eye on IoT and artificial intelligence? Anything that's shocking you or exciting you?
So yes, IoT, probably not so much, but actually, I mentioned Bobby in CarTrawler. Bobby drives a Tesla. Tesla is, always on, always rigged up to the cloud. It's one of these Model S Teslas that drives itself once you're on the motorway.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing. I guess that's where we're going in the future. I saw that one of the big, taxi, remind me, Uber are going for autonomous vehicles as well. That'll self-drive. I think they'll still have a driver sitting in the seat, but they'll self-drive.
Yeah.
So that's, as the Internet of Things goes, I think that's going to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an interesting space to watch. Remind me of the rest of the question.
Artificial intelligence.
AI.
Yeah.
AI. So that scares me. The development, it's exciting, but it's also a little bit trepidatious as well. Wired magazine last summer wrote an article that was both really interesting in terms of interviewing the guys at Google and Elon Musk as well about where they saw artificial. I hadn't realized until I read that article just how much the space had evolved, how dramatically it had evoluted. So I definitely think we're going to see, and maybe the self-driving cars is the start of it. We're definitely going to see a massive evolution of that space over the next years.
I was listening to Kevin Kelly. I think he might have written the article in Wired at the time, and he's probably one of the most interesting people in the world. If you don't know that, he just goes into what they're going to do, where they're actually going to take it. He believes that it won't be like Skynet, Terminator. He's very positive on that aspect. He does, but he's very, very optimistic that won't happen. But it genuinely, you could spend a year looking at it. His books are so interesting that he's predicting the next 15, 20 years of where it's going to go. If you look at what you know now, and that you wish you knew back then, what would you say your 2 or 3 kind of things that you know now to be correct?
So the things I know to be correct. You will get it done is one thing, and that's not in that kind of reality distorting Steve Jobs way. It's just there's always a way, whether it's a short project or whether you're building a big thing, you'll get it done. And as the countdown clock, takes you towards your launch date, you'll find ways to tune scope. You'll find ways to kind of manufacture time. And if you have brilliant people working with you along the way, miracles will happen, and you get it done. So I tell myself probably to kind of chill a little bit, that you'll get there each time, and I think that's valid. I would say, going back to that earlier point, enjoy today. Enjoy the now. Don't postpone enjoyment for some future event that may or may not happen in the company. It has to be about coming into work and working with people that you love working with, and doing things that you love doing. There's a kind of Confucius element to that. If you never want to work again, find something you love doing, and so I'd certainly remind myself or tell myself that, and then I'd probably say it's not just about work as well. The reminder that the enjoyment. So we talked about the latter years of having family, having kids, having GAA and coaching and cycling and all that kind of stuff. I'd remind the younger self that you don't have to do 24/7, 365. Keep some time aside and enjoy the stuff that goes on outside as well. Because I think the early years, especially of consulting, were very, very intense. But valuable as well.
Okay. If you could speak to your 18-year-old self or yourself at 80 years of age, who would you speak to?
Who would I spend time with?
Yeah, you had some minutes to spend your 80-year-old or your 18.
Where did you get that question from?
I got that question from, I think it was Tim Ferriss.
Okay.
I think it was Tim Ferriss or it was Michael Port. I can't remember, but I heard it yesterday. And I was like, I got it from Gary Kelleher because he asked it. And I was thinking, wow, that's a great question, because if you spoke to your 80-year-old self, they'd tell you, make sure you do this, and this.
Yeah.
But your 18-year-old self might have all these ideas.
Yeah.
And say, don't forget about these ideas because they're so important. So I'm kind of on that now. So I just thought of it.
Yeah. So I think, if I could spend time with one or the other of those guys, I'd probably like a coffee with my 80-year-old self.
Right.
Because I enjoyed being with my 18-year-old self when I was there. I knew that guy. I think he broadly kind of got things right, in terms of direction, in terms of where he wanted to get to. But I think my 80-year-old self would be a really interesting few minutes over a coffee.
Yeah.
I think that would be an insight, and more for the, what's out there still to see. Okay,
good. So I've got you thinking now.
You have.
I got you thinking. Have you got a favorite interview question?
I do, and it's not really it's not a conventional one. It's pretty unconventional. So I like to ask somebody the impossible question.
Okay.
So, and I think I learned this years ago from Joelle on software, that ask people questions that are important during interview to tell what technology experience they have, but ask them an impossible question. So ask them, if you're interviewing somebody in the US, ask them how many piano tuners you suppose there are in New York, or ask them, over here, ask how many petrol stations you reckon there are in Dublin. And nobody can know the answer. Nobody's going to get that answer right. But you start to see how people respond in awkward, impossible situations, and how they go about processing it. So if somebody says, well, I reckon there's about 100, sorry, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to think, well, how many people are there? How many cars are there? How much petrol do people use? That sort of thing. And so it's usually very enjoyable to see the journey that people go on, and it can tell you an awful lot very quickly. Yeah,
it's a good one. I heard that one a few times, but with the how many Starbucks are there? Yes. And then you work out the population, how many people.
Desire for coffee.
Desire for coffee, the demographic and all that. That's really, really good. And my last question: what advice would you offer to graduates coming onto the marketplace now?
Good question. So I think find something you love, or maybe you don't have that many options as a graduate. You got to find work. You got to get a roof over your head. You got to feed yourself. But get on a trajectory. Get on a path that's going to take you to something that you love. So for the younger me, that was consulting. Ultimately I wanted to be programming, and I wanted to be maybe I wanted to be writing games and writing cool software. But for the younger me, the route there was like lots of projects along the way. Okay. And yeah, sure, I needed to pay the bills first.
Right.
But I'd say it's all about, again, I know I keep coming back to this, but it's all about doing something that you love to do every single day. And so navigate your way to that. And that might be the startup. Yeah. And maybe for you, it's not, it's working in an environment where, there are like-minded people who maybe aren't working in a crazy startup environment.
Last question, because I just remembered it.
Okay.
Biggest misconception about you?
I think going back to the me that was writing at the time that I had that kind of entrepreneurial instinct, and actually what I had was a very creative instinct, and the two aren't necessarily the same thing.
Okay.
And so, having seen and worked with some great entrepreneurs, I just left in awe every time with the sheer energy and determination and the vision. And even when things are falling apart, they're still, they still have the vision and they still want to get there. And I think I can bring something very valuable to that. But I've learned over the years, reluctantly, I have to say, that I'm not the entrepreneur. I'm the guy that's with them on the journey. I'm passport two or the navigator or something like that. But and that was that was probably a difficult one to accept. But it enabled me in accepting it. It empowered me to kind of really enjoy what it is that I do.
Jim Carr, thank you so much for your time
today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And that is the end of our show. For more information, please check our website. And that's the end for me. See you now. Bye. Jim, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the show today. What's been your takeaway action that you're going to implement after listening to the show? For more videos and podcasts, please check out www.wykn.co. If you've enjoyed listening to the latest show, would you mind taking a moment to review it? Your feedback is genuinely invaluable to me. Thanks for listening. Have a super day.